welcome to Music Rewind, a podcast where we look to tell the stories behind our favorite albums. I'm your host, Steve Epley, and in each episode, we invite a guest on to tell us about their favorite music album, how they discovered it, and what makes it special to them. Joining me tonight is editor-in-chief of Bass Magazine, Jon D'Auria. A lifelong bassist and storyteller, Jon has spent over 2 decades deep in the trenches of the low-end world, touring with bands, laying down tracks in top studios, and writing for premier music outlets. Since taking the helm of Bass Magazine, he's become the definitive voice for bass players everywhere. Welcome, Jon, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. Additionally, I'm hiring you to write my bio because you just made me sound cooler than I am. So I really appreciate that.
That is why I'm here. My pleasure.
Love it. Love it. No, that was great. And it's such an honor to be here. Love what you do. Love the format. So I'm thrilled, man.
All right, then. Well, let's jump right into this. What album did you bring to the table, and what makes it special to you?
So the album I brought to the table is the 2000 released album from Radiohead, Kid A. And when you brought the concept of the album and kind of bring that just definitively popped in my head, because that's, to me, probably my personal favorite album of all time. Beautiful thing about music is it's subjective. I love Radiohead. I have close friends who can't stand Radiohead. It's like nails on a chalkboard to them. And I love that too, because their music could sound like hillbillies on a bender to me. But this album just had such a deep impact on my life and still does. You know, it's one of the albums that I put on like comfort food. Sometimes I'll just crave it and be like, oh, I need Kid A today, you know.
Right.
And I can listen to it continuously on repeat and just never tire of it. So that's why it was my pick.
Well, how did you discover it?
Well, it's funny because I grew up really into hip hop and all that kind of stuff. But then I started branching to kind of the Rage Against the Machine, other things. And when I started playing bass, our singer was really big into Radiohead. And I remembered the Paranoid Android video from MTV. And it was that cartoon, and it was had such an imprint on me that I was like, in a Beavis and Butthead way, I was like, that's awesome. I don't know what's going on musically.
It was a great video.
Yes, I can't identify what instruments are doing what, but I like this. And so that stuck with me. And then, you know, of course, stuff from Pablo Honey and the Bends would seep its way into pop culture. The early songs of Radiohead. I ended up getting OK Computer first, and that's just a whole 35 podcasts on its own.
Right.
And then when I kind of branched off on my own, exploring Radiohead, it was in my early 20s. And when I was in my early 20s, I was pissed that nobody tells you how messed up your 20s are, because you hit all these adulthood things. And for me and many people, it's just an existential crisis. You know, You start, things happen in your life and they're bigger than they probably are in hindsight. Things like depression and anxiety might start seeping in if you, kind of were able to avoid those thus far in your life. And it's a confusing time period. And I was in a weird place for a while. And this album, I got it. And this was CD time. You know, I'm fine dating myself, but I got the CD and put it in, and it was just like the vaccine. You know, it was like the cure and explanation of what I was feeling in a very musical sense. And I became just hooked on it. Like, really, you could ask my friends that I have to this day. I would get home from classes and work, and I would just go in my room. I had 3 roommates, and I would just put this on. I had a fairly nice stereo in my room, and I would just put it on and let it cycle on the CD, and I had it on the repeat album mode. And I would just listen to it until I'd go to band rehearsal later that night. And it was what I needed. It was the right album at the right time for me. Yeah, I'm forever grateful that it exists for that reason.
That's a wonderful thing to find when you're in that frame of mind as a young adult. I completely understand.
Yep.
I did my own episode of this show in season 1 where Animals from Pink Floyd was very similar to that whole
So
thing of
akin to this. Yes.
it
Yes.
hit me right where I wanted it, and it still sits with me to this day. My exposure to Radiohead
Mhm.
was OK Computer in high school, same.
Yep. Me too.
An older cousin that told me that because I love Pink Floyd so much, that I'm required to like Radiohead.
It's just a requisite. Yep.
That turned it off for me. I was like,
Yes.
then no. So in 2000, though, I was out of high school. I had no idea this album existed. I had no idea In Rainbows existed. I mean, I was just I had shut Radiohead out. And so it's only in my middle age here that I've recently been rediscovering some of these Radiohead albums through Music Rewind, because we did In Rainbows in season 1 as well.
Masterpiece as well. That, yeah.
I kind of approached this album the same, because this was a first time listen for me. I had never heard Kid A.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. And it was not what I was expecting, because it wasn't OK Computer and it wasn't In Rainbows.
No.
This was completely
This
different.
is different. And they came to a crossroads where when OK Computer came out, they came off their debuts, which were Pablo Honey and the Bends. Both albums are amazing. I still love them to this day. But those were pretty on the road of alternative and rock and songwriter. And they stayed in that lane, for the most part. OK Computer came out and was just like, you could tell that was an album where they're like, I love when artists and bands, you can tell they were in a bubble when they were writing this. And if they had influences, there's not a ton of signs of them on it. It's kind of like they were on their own planet with its own gravity and atmosphere. So coming from that, the whole world was kind of like, where do they go next? What's the next sound? And Radiohead is good at having their DNA in all of their music, but totally transforming where they're going to go. So when this came out, and they recorded it in Amnesiac, which came out, I believe, a year or within the year that Kid A came out. And it kind of showed that they didn't care. They weren't trying to really keep people on the Radiohead train who didn't want to be on it, and they weren't making music to not pander, but to really please anybody but themselves. And so it was such a left turn for them, for sure, like all their albums, really.
And that's fascinating. They were kind of giving a silent middle finger to the record industry and in a very nonchalant way, because they've released it on Napster, apparently, for free. And then it still hit number 1 upon its release.
Exactly. Yes.
It's fascinating.
And it's such a cool thing. And it's just a testament, like any good music. You brought up Pink Floyd. They didn't care what was on the radio. I'm listening to a lot of Pink Floyd right now, and it's so dissonant. And, so much of it requires a little patience and requires all those things. And that goes back to what I was saying about, when bands are writing for themselves and for the music, and they kind of take on the role of being a steward of their expression, then it's like, that's magic. We live in a very much an era, and you could say this in any decade, where, people want to be famous and rock stars and rich and all that. And that's great. And I talk to those kind of bands constantly. Amazing. It's phenomenal. But it's just cool when there's a very unique kind of divide in that of, I'm doing this for me. This is what's coming out. I have no control over it. Listen if you want. And if not,
Somehow Radiohead has become one of those bands that, akin to the 60s and 70s, of a band that evolved. Their beginning sounds nothing like their end. Yes. Nowadays, bands can't really, they're not allowed. Whether that's financial or the need to feed the algorithm, you can't experiment. You can't do something drastically different. And Radiohead's kind of one of the last remaining bands. I think they're still.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Actually, they just played their first series of concerts in 7 years, and it looks like they just needed to kind of regenerate, and it looks like they're back full on. But yeah, you're totally right. I mean, look at something that's not my ballpark, but like Taylor Swift just put out her album, and it's different than what she had been putting out. And it was so not ridiculed, but it was so scrutinized that it's slightly different of what she was doing. And I love what you said about artists who have been able to sound, the Princes and the David Bowies and the Led Zeppelins and those who you start on album one, and by the time you get to the end, it's like the Beatles, of course, the greatest band of all time. It's like, what was that? What was that ride I just went on?
Absolutely. I mean, even Metallica, Ride the Lightning sounds nothing like what they're doing now.
Nothing.
Or there are bands like the Foo Fighters, good, consistent
Yep.
rock albums.
Yes.
There's not a lot of evolution on the overall sound, but they're consistent. But Radiohead is one that is, the Bends of Pablo Honey, completely different than Hail to the Thief or In Rainbow. So, and then you have a very unique one like this in there, where apparently they threw guitars to the side and let's experiment with sound and vocoders.
Exactly.
Wild.
It's the kind of thing where that was like the one thing I listened to for a couple of years, and I was constantly hearing new stuff in it. And now in times when I put it on now, especially with how amazing headphones are and, earbuds and monitors and everything, I'm still hearing new stuff. It's, like the Beatles were kind of big into experimenting like that, like something you might not hear for a few decades, and all of a sudden, like, I never heard that tambourine, or I never heard that eighth guitar lick in there. This album very much is like that for me, and it's like I constantly discover new things. And, I love talking about it with people, and everyone loves talking about the music they love. And so when you find someone that loves what you love, it's a great thing to really dive into that. And so I love hearing other people's responses and, interpretations of it. And yeah, it's just a very encompassing album for me.
That's not me.
Yeah, on first listen, I definitely thought, what the hell was that? What did I just listen to? It takes a couple of listens for me to compare to like prog rock.
Yes.
Something like deep from like Yes or something.
Right. Yes.
I need to listen to it several times and really, with good headphones to let it click with me. And then I'm noticing the layer here, the extra lyrics here, something weird over there. And Radiohead is all about layers.
Yes, exactly. It's like if you're talking about taste sensory and stuff, it's like, if you go to fast food and you get a burger, you're like, I taste the burger. That's great. And if you go into like a fine restaurant that has insane menu items where every bite is kind of like oh my gosh, so there's sage in this, and wow, it's like that kind of thing. And I love music like that. I also love the stuff that just makes me feel good. I don't want to call it mindless, but there's a reason that the top 40 songs are the top 40. And it's because the fast food hamburger is delicious. And just like the way a very complicated dish that took a long time to simmer and marinate is delicious. But yeah, this one, I could see how for you it would take a couple passes. I was thinking about that leading up to this podcast. What if I heard it right now at this point in my life? Like, how would I receive it differently? Would I have the same reaction? And, definitely not. Would I appreciate it as much? I think so, but it would be different having where I am now and where my headspace is and all of that. So
walk me through the album, how you listen to it. Do you skip around or do you go front to back?
I don't. It's funny. I am a very definitive person with everything. Like anyone who knows me really well, like I'm in a lot of bands and play with a lot of artists, and I write the set lists for every band I'm in, because in my head, I'm like, this is the first song, this second song. And so track listings are huge to me. And I could take any album I love and be like, they messed up.
So do you religiously go front to back whenever you're on an album?
I don't, because in my head, there's a very specific order in which things make sense. And I almost instantly know it. I'm weird. And it's only unique to, it's for me.
So you have a specific order for this one that you probably listen to then?
This one, I don't. This one, I think they nailed it. And Radiohead, to me, it's that just perfect orders every album. It's like In Rainbow's coming out 15-step, just okay computer coming out with Airbag. And then the sequence after, I'm like, oh, they nailed that. Like I'm a critique of album order for most every album. And there's a lot that I think are just perfect. And then there's some where I'm like, oh no, they messed that up. That's not a song 11. That's a fifth song,
I agree with that. And they say that you can tell sometimes when a band will put the track at 4 or 5 so that it's that hit maker one
Yep.
when it
Yep.
shouldn't be.
No,
It would have
exactly.
flowed much better later or
Yeah.
prior.
Exactly. And so for me, this album kicks off with everything in its right place, which is just perfect in that sequence. I always say that the first track of an album, whether it's death metal, hip hop, rock, alternative, classical, ambient, it should hit you in the crotch in some way, or just grab you, and just be like, some of the heaviest song ones on albums are from the chillest bands to me. And it's just how impactful that first track is, to where you're just like, whatever you're doing, it just grabs you and is like, nope, right over here, where your focus is. And then you sink in, and then it takes you on that journey. Everything in its right place. It's mid BPMs, and it's not a hype song by any means, and there's not a lot of hype songs on this album.
No.
It's funny because the other album I was going to bring to this would have been Tool Lateralis. Those are kind of my top two, which is totally different. That one is thriving, and it's got higher BPMs, and it's something you want to drive on the highway to, and all that kind of stuff. And this one's very different, which is very different for me too, because I love that driving kind of stuff. But I love the sequence of this, from everything in its right place to Kid A. National Anthem is probably the most hyped song on the album. How to Disappear Completely, oddly, is the slowest and possibly my favorite song on the album. Tree Fingers, which is mainly instrumental. Optimistic, In Limbo, they kind of segue into each other, is gorgeous. Idiotech is a hype song. Morning Bell, and then the very long kind of meditative motion picture soundtrack with a little brief hidden track at the end. It's, to me, just perfect. They say there's like infinite ways you can shuffle a deck of cards. Like this album, I think no matter how you shuffle it, this is the correct order for it.
Yeah, especially through the repeated listens I had since you picked this album. I agree with the order. I'm definitely not a fan of all the songs, and I understand and I appreciate where they're at and why.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like I say, everything in its right place is a very Radiohead start. There's my main note on that particular track. And doing more research on the album, I found out that a lot of these lyrics came from dreams and nightmares.
Yeah. Yep.
During the OK Computer tour,
yes.
and the recording of this. And so you get some really fascinating lyrics, and like waking up sucking on a lemon, which is basically being miserable.
Yes.
And then Kid A, we've got heads on sticks and you're to ventriloquist. I mean, it's very vivid imagery that they're painting, and I could see that being pulled straight from dreams. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. That's the funny connect. Lyrics are important to me for sure, and they always have been. Like when I was before digital stuff, when I was younger, I used to write down song lyrics, and I would have to rewind and listen. And I still somewhere have notebooks full of my favorite song lyrics. An album like Lateralis by Tool was also the right album at the right time for me. And the lyrics are so profound to me and so meaningful that like I could refer to them for advice and as a mile marker or guide. This album, not the case. It's a lot of obscure, probably nonsensical to the listener. Just like you said, patchwork of dreams and ramblings and all of that. But it's like, I love him. I hear Tom York's voice most always as more of an instrument, as more of melodic, kind of in a Sigur Rós kind of way, where it's like he's also an instrument using that. I'm not necessarily listening to this trying to get insight.
I'm almost positive that on our In Rainbows episode, my friend Luke said the exact same thing, that Tom's voice is an instrument.
Absolutely. And the emotion and one thing, kind of like what you were saying about, woke up sucking a lemon and all that, like the time frame when this was written, they were miserable. Gosh, I had a VHS that I guess was for sale, or maybe, I don't know how I got it. And it followed the band through this time. Had a bunch of interviews, miserable, especially Tom York. Hated fame, hated the attention, almost quit, and they almost broke up for no reason other than just not enjoying themselves for so long. I believe it was Michael Stipe from REM that motivated Tom York to keep going because they were on tour together. And I like that. I like hearing people work stuff out through music. You put on a Billie Holiday album, she had like the most traumatic life. You hear every experience and every note, or the timbre of her voice and every nuance of it. And I feel like you get that from this. It can be hard for me when people are just balling out of control, living their best Hollywood lives. Hearing a sad song from one of them, I'm like, yeah, all right. But,
That's also goes into when I listened to it the first time, I like to go in blind. I
Yes.
didn't read any history first. I just listened to the album.
Yeah.
So hearing everything straight through, and then that's what I said to myself, what the hell did I just listen to? And then doing a little research, you realize the headspace they were in.
Yeah.
And I got to give them a lot of credit because a lot of artists in that headspace can go down a very dark path.
Yes.
And it's in credit to them for not doing that, number one. Well, I don't know, they're all personal habits, but
No, you're correct.
they're still creating today, and they're still, I believe they're all still friends. I don't know of any, gigantic blow ups, but they were able to turn that into art at the time that was widely accepted and widely different.
Yes.
Or wildly different. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, they've been together since they were ultimately like boys, in Oxford. They all still live in Oxford. I think Ed O'Brien, the guitarist, lives in London, which they give him crap about. But, and, I feel insanely lucky doing what I do because for the last 6 years, I became friends with the bass player Colin Greenwood through interviewing him. We got to talking outside of it and we keep in touch, and he'll ask me advice on gear and this and that. And I have to very much restrain myself from letting him on to how big of a fan I am. But I tell this to people. I feel like he doesn't know he's famous and he doesn't know how big Radiohead is. The first email I got from him, the subject of it said, "Hi, John, this is Colin Greenwood from Radiohead." And I was like, I know who you are. Like, I've obsessed over your band for my whole adult life.
That's crazy to me because what I said at the beginning, where my cousin in high school was all about OK Computer, my friend Luke who did In Rainbows, we're all from the Midwest.
Yes.
Middle of nowhere, Cornfield, Illinois.
Yes.
And Radiohead was huge. Still is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about not recognize how big of a celebrity you are, but just to be able to roll through that nonchalantly like that, that's impressive.
Every response of his where I'm like, oh my God, I love that song. And he's like, oh, you like that? Like I was like, yes, like, I know millions and millions of people who happen to also like that. And it's funny because when we'll talk, he'll be like, oh, I'm on a holiday with my brother, Johnny. And I'm like, I know your brother's Johnny Greenwood, like, one of the craziest guitarists and now most renowned scorers and all of that. So I love that too, that they're all still close, never broke up. They took a 7-year break. Like you said, they didn't fall into addiction. They didn't fall into the pitfalls that are very common with artists in music. And it's very logical why that occurs. But you can really tell from their albums that is where it goes. They don't pocket that and have, ulcers and stomach issues because it all just goes right into the music. And this album to me is that emotion distilled, not the happiest.
Sleeping pills help me get back to your arms.
A funny thing was, I was helping clean out a warehouse a while back, and I had that Kid A playing. A couple of my buddies and I loved it, and it was playing, and my mom stopped by, and she was there for a little while, and she goes, "This is the most depressing music I've ever heard in my life." He's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right, it is." I'm like, "No, I'm great. Like, this makes me happy." But like, yeah, like I like seeing stuff from other people's lenses. And, like I was talking about my buddies that just can't stand Radiohead. And I like that. I'm like, what do you hate? Like, what do you hate most? What bugs you? And he's like, oh, the voice is just whiny and just so this, and the guitars like don't make sense, and this, and the beat isn't steady. I'm like, that is so cool to hear because like I love both ends of it,
Yeah, because there's no lie there.
No,
but that's
not at all.
that's part of the point.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes of all time is arguing about music is like dancing about politics. And it's like everyone has an opinion and their opinion is correct because it's their opinion, and that's why any arguments online, which is now the sounding board and the grounds of the war that is you're wrong and I'm right, it's all just gibberish because the album I like the least is someone's favorite album, and that is awesome. And for that, I love that album. For them, not for me, but it's all subjective.
So Kid A made the top of your list.
Mhm.
What albums would have made your short list? 3 to 5 albums. You mentioned Tool already that you possibly would have brought to the table.
That's so funny you said that because I sat and I actually listed and I had to think so hard about it. This was pretty easy. Like when you and I were talking before this and you were like, yeah, just bring an album to the table. I was like, oh, Kid A. Tool's Lateralis was right up there. And then it's a weird mix. The albums that are on my short list, and this is just very obviously specific to my life, are Radiohead's Kid A, Tool Lateralis, Atlians by Outkast, Fiona Apple's Tidal, De La Soul's Stakes is High, Deftones' White Pony, and Bjork's Debut. That was what I narrowed it to.
Eclectic list, my man.
Very much so. And I still have, you remember those huge 100 CD cases full of albums?
Yes.
I still have 10 of those. That's where all my money went. My whole first half of my life was albums. Now I stream them. I have a ton on here, and I could make a top 100 list pretty no problem. That would get into older stuff and newer stuff and all this and that. But randomly, those are the albums that have probably impacted me most. And I do think it's right place, right time in my life for all of those. And each has a very different and very important purpose to me. So
the Lateralis tour was the only concert I ever left.
Really? Right. Oh, that's amazing. See, I love hearing that too. I love it.
Because I love Tool. I mean, Undertow, Enema.
Yep.
That also just that was my Tool era. Yeah. So when I was actually stationed in Hawaii
Oh, wow.
in my early 20s, and they came out to Honolulu and did a show, and it was bad.
Wow. That's amazing to hear.
Well, they held it on the UH campus, and they banned all alcohol right off the bat.
Okay.
So everyone was stone sober and a bit bored.
Yep.
And the antics of Maynard and the crew didn't really hit as well when everyone's just kind of
standing there. Yeah.
Standing there. At one point, he turned around and played PlayStation for 20 minutes.
Wow.
And while there wasn't really a bass solo, it was just
droning.
Doom, 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 doom.
Yes. Yep.
After that, we were like, you guys want to go get a drink? So we left.
Yes. I could definitely see how that would hit. And see, that's what I'm talking. I love that because I love that album. I saw that tour, loved it. One of the best shows of my life. That's the coolest thing, Steve, is that I genuinely enjoy that because there's not a lot. Well, anything in life is pretty subjective aside from some principled things, but that's the coolest thing. I never take offense to it. I don't even take offense to people hating music that I'm a part of. It's like, yeah, man, that's great.
Well, and bands can give a bad show just personally. Sometimes, stuff happens, but also there's mitigating circumstances. Like I said, it was a dry concert, which just didn't really go over too well.
I'm sure.
There was no opening act. It was very, very sterile.
Yes.
But 2 weeks after that, I saw Pennywise at a dive bar, and it was great.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, Pennywise is great on their own, man. I mean, that's the coolest thing. Some of the best shows I've seen were in dives, and probably bands, like anyone, not a ton of people know about on a widespread kind of level. And it doesn't take anything, you don't have to have the huge Foo Fighters stage setup or a Guns N' Roses stage setup. It can, a good show is a good show and good music.
Oh yeah, some of the best shows I've ever seen were in dive bars. I saw Warrant in a dive bar near the Honolulu airport, and they were great.
Nice. Yes, Steve. Exactly, man. That's the thing, is that it's just, you find it. That's why it's always worth going to see live music. You never know when it's going to be something that just kind of alters you in a way like that. But I love hearing that. You say that about that album. And I like that because even within bands, anyone could argue, with Radiohead, okay, Computer, obviously, or in Rainbows, obviously. And yeah, it's just everyone has different tastes. That's a cool thing.
So let's talk some about your world.
Yes.
Tell us about Bass Magazine. You've been in that since back in the Guitar World days, right?
Yeah. So I've been doing this 20 years now. I got into journalism in 2005. So yeah, 20 years now. And I've been in the bass realm. I'm a bass player, obviously, as you can see behind me, and much more that is not in eyesight. And I just started as a freelance writer, had never written before, never took a journalism class, stumbled on it. I got an opportunity, took it, and then I just kind of lied and said yes to everything from that point on. And it was kind of like, oh, I'm freelance writing. And then they were like, oh, can you take photographs? I'm like, of course, yeah. So I'm a photographer. So I got a camera and started shooting. And then, can you be a web editor? Oh, of course I can. Yes. And then I did that. And can you be a gear editor? Can you be a managing editor? And so I just yesed my way through it, and then ended up at Bass Player Magazine in 2011 until it was purchased in late 2018, early 2019 by a British company. And they, instead of kind of going in the direction they were taking it, the US staff branched off and we started Bass Magazine. We've been around since 2019. So right before COVID, like everything halted. But that wasn't bad because we are online only. And so we just were getting content on the daily, and as much, and trying to provide everything we could to the community. And now we've been going on 6 years strong, and we have these awards that are coming up, and we put out issues regularly, features, interviews constantly. Yeah, I love it. It's a beautiful thing. At this point, I've done over 450 interviews. I've gone through my entire bucket list of heroes and musicians that I would never thought in my life I would get to talk to or hang out with, and all of that. And I'm thrilled about that, obviously. And it's cool to know that everyone's just people. That's the biggest thing I say is no matter how big the star is, they have bad days, they have depression, they have anxiety, they have relationship problems, they have money problems, they have health issues. It's cool. It's just a cool thing to see the superstars through a different lens. And more so, just the bass community is a beautiful, insulated place that is largely very supportive of the bass family. Unlike, all the instruments and stuff, it really is supportive. I'm not just saying that to make us sound cooler. And so it's been really rewarding and edifying being in this space for so long.
Well, you knocked off one of my questions. I was going to say, is there anybody left on your legends list? But
Yeah. I
yeah,
haven't done Paul McCartney. Would
Okay.
love to get, we have, as Bass Player Magazine, we had covered him. The major ones that I still want to interact with while I have the opportunity would probably be, John Paul Jones, Paul McCartney. That's, yeah. Otherwise, I've been lucky being kind of in the right places. So
Are there any out there that you have interviewed and that you interact with that still make you nervous just by entering the room?
no, luckily. You know what's funny about that? Because I don't get asked a lot of questions. I don't really talk a ton about what I do, but that is one question I get. And it's funny because musicians are very comfortable to me. And I think early on, the shock factor of it kind of rolled off. I was thrown in some pretty wild situations early on in my career. And from that, got really tempered into it. But then it's funny because if I'm out in LA and I stumble across an actor, I'm like, holy cow, that's them. And I think it's like a visual kind of thing. It's like, because you see them on screen and all that. And those, I'm just, even it could be like a B-list actor. I'm like, oh, dude, that's blank. But then a musician can walk in and be like, hey, man, like, or hey, dude, like this or that. But yeah, there definitely been some cool, weird things, not weird, but just like, how the heck is this happening kind of situations, pinch me kind of things. But yeah, but I'm typically pretty comfortable. When I function primarily off Zoom and all that, I'm out in Arizona.
You're like leaking my questions, man. I was going to say, my next question was, how do you do interviews these days with these guys? Is it remote or do you backstage at concerts or what?
Yeah. That's the thing is I love doing them in person because you get so much more and you get a connection. The biggest thing, as you know, from doing this is kind of comfortability and trust. And when you're in person, you can very much instill that a bit quicker. I think early into interviews, the artist can relax and know that I have no malicious intent, that I'm not looking for clickbait. I'm not looking for an easy headline. It's just really caring about that person and their music and connecting just in a human conversational way. And I think in person, you can really get that across. In Zoom, you can to a degree, to a large degree too. Phoners are good, doing it over the phone, but it loses a little bit, seeing facial expression and reaction and all of that. So my number one mode that I love most is in person. So, I'll travel a lot and knock out a bunch at once. Otherwise, just all day Zoom, baby. I get Zoom fatigue a ton from meetings and because, even just from what we do, it's like my team is in LA, New York, some in Nashville, some in San Francisco and all that. And then the companies we work with are all over the grid. So it's a lot of staring into it. And then it's funny because I'll walk outside and I'm like, oh yeah, real life. Like I'm not just an avatar. Like, yeah, that's how I conduct my interviews.
Leading into the next NAMM show, Bass Magazine's a big part of that. Can you tell us what you all got planned this time around?
Yeah, so coming up, we have the 2026 Bass Magazine Awards. We did Bass Player Live for about 15, 20 years before it was defunct and that magazine kind of subsided. And we would give awards out. And back then, it was great. I'm so thankful that we were able to get so many on the list before they passed. The John and Whistles and so many that were able to come in person. We gave Lemmy Kilmister, we got him his award and he passed away within 2 weeks after that. And so it was cool to I was the one that went out and greeted him from his limo and he came out with a bottle of vodka and some female companions and explained to me that vodka's healthier on his liver than whiskey and all this and that and got to spend...
That's why Lemmy is a god. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then he passed away a couple of weeks later. And I was like, we always say that in our editorial meetings. We're like, we have to get them on the cover while we can when kind of they hit a certain point. We just went out to Sting's New York home to present him his Lifetime Achievement Award. He got really ill last year. He was our headliner and, recipient of a Lifetime Achievement. We just got to give him the award. Last year was amazing. Sting was headlining. He was very, very sick. So he had to sit that one out. But we gave Lifetime Achievement Awards to Justin Chancellor of Tool. And we actually had Tool perform. It's at a 1,000-person venue, which is the Observatory in Santa Ana, California. And Tool hadn't played a show that size since like 1991. So it was really cool getting them in there without their setup and without everything.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Yeah, it was really cool. We had an amazing legend of bass, John Patitucci, who played an amazing set. We got him a Lifetime Achievement. We got Future of Bass Awards to Mono Neon. And he performed, and we actually had Les Claypool come out and the guitarist Osnoy perform with him, which was really cool to see. We had Mohini Day, amazing young bass player who's just at the top of the field with a Future of Bass Award. This year, it's Thursday, January 22nd at the Observatory in Santa Ana, California. And we have Mike Dirnt from Green Day receiving a Lifetime Achievement. We have Les Claypool of Primus receiving a Lifetime Achievement. We have Marcus Miller, who's one of the greatest bass players to ever do it, receiving a Lifetime Achievement. We have Laura Lee of Krungbin, who's receiving a Future of Bass Award, and Blue to Tiger, who's phenomenal, who's receiving a Future of Bass Award. We don't announce performances going into it, which life would be easier sitting in my chair if we did announce performances. But all I'll say is that last year we had Tool and all those amazing performances. This year is like beyond that. So it's something you don't want to miss, especially in a 1,000-person venue that you're close. You're right there at all times,
For any bassists listening who are heading to NAMM for the first time, is there anything that you could recommend that they don't miss while they're there?
Man, so I think this will be my 13th NAMM. It is a lot. It is walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory times a million, to where I'll never forget the first time I went in. I got my badge. I was with a couple buddies and went through the first set of doors. Oh, this is amazing. Went through the second set. Oh, here we are. Got into the actual convention center and was like, whoa. At that time it was like 90,000 people. You have 50,000 people shredding and taking drum solos at the same time. It's like a guitar center, a whole country of Guitar Center at the same time. And then it's amazing. The first year I've walked in and I was going to check out the bass stuff. And all of a sudden there's a little crowd coming by and right in front of my face is walking Stevie Wonder. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is Stevie Wonder. Take a bunch more steps. I'm at the Gibson booth checking out a bass of theirs. And I turn around and I hear just this guy talking and I turn around and there's Slash just like looking at a model. He's like, oh yeah, this, and this. And I was like, this is the coolest thing. but it's a lot, especially if you go the whole span. I would say, like you would tell someone going to Disneyland or something, pace yourself. Figure out what you really want to see, because that is the ultimate distraction and sidetrack, state of mind. Because you're like, okay, we got to go check out Orange Amps. Let's head over this way. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, dude, look at this. And there's performances. All of a sudden you look over and it's like insane. It's like, oh, Steve Vai is shredding on this. Like, holy cow. And you go there. And then you're like, oh, yeah, Orange Amps, let's go here. And all of a sudden you go over and it's like Living Color, the band, like playing. And you're like, oh my God, obviously we're watching this. And all of a sudden, it's 5 o'clock and you're like, what were we going to go see? And so I would say, figure out what you want to see. They have an amazing app, and you can actually like set a course and kind of a schedule for yourselves. Use their resources. NAMM has continually evolved over the years, and they do a great job of evolving with what people want. It's like, I always feel like they actually listen, like there's some companies where they'll put out a new iteration of something and you're like, oh, they got all the memos. Like they listen to everybody. Like, I feel like NAMM really does that. And so use the resources and just see as much cool stuff as you can. Get ready to not eat much. You can go a day and be like, oh, I don't think I ate today. Get ready to not sleep much, and bring earplugs, because it gets very loud, and the aesthetic overload comes in waves. There were years with bass player where I had meetings all day, and I would hit a point at 4 where I'm like, I don't think I ate. And then I'd be like, I think I need to sit down, like I don't think this is healthy. And then you just end up drinking like medically alarming sized coffees and all this. And but it's amazing. You can't experience it anywhere else. So just get ready.
I had press credentials last year, and then my son and daughter are actors. So
oh, nice.
But when they book something, that takes precedence over anything podcast related.
Yep.
I have press credentials this year again, but there's a chance that I'll be on set somewhere. No, I keep
you got to make it out. And then I want to talk to you after you end up making it out. But that is amazing that your kids are actors. And see, I would be starstruck by them. Not Geddy Lee, but your kids, I would be, yeah.
He likes Rush.
There you go.
I need to get him and Geddy in a room. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. That's the next assignment.
He likes Rush through South Park. That was
oh, I like everything through South Park. Of course.
Any final thoughts about Kid A, Bass Magazine, NAMM, anything?
Yeah, those are my thoughts for the most part on Kid A. I love it. I guess now I can pretty much, I'll say definitively it's probably my most meaningful and favorite album. I would say that we are looking for 2027. It didn't work out this year because of their shows, but most likely expect that Colin Greenwood of Radiohead will be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. So that kind of ties in both worlds there. And yeah, go to bassmagazineawards.com and get your tickets. If you're going to be at NAMM, don't miss it. It's definitely the biggest, I can say that without ego, but it's the biggest concert event that's going on there. You don't want to miss it. Tickets are reasonably priced. The lineup is going to blow people away. Even we roll out what we announce, and every day cool new advancements come. Like we're going to announce soon that like Mark Hoppus of Blink-182 is going to come give Mike Dirnt, the award. He's going to be one of his. We have other celebrity musicians be the presenters. We'll roll those out kind of one by one. So stay tuned for more details. Go to bassmagazine.com, follow us on socials, blah, 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 like and subscribe, all that crap everyone says, yada, yada. But it's a really amazing night, and it's awesome being there. And we're going to have full coverage. Being backstage and in the green room is bonkers. Last year, it was like I walked into one of the green rooms and it was Les Claypool popping one of his bottles of champagne from his vineyard with the members of Tool, while Verdine White of Earth, Wind and Fire was eating a plate of pasta, while Les Claypool was telling Verdine he's the reason he started playing bass, while who else? It was like, it was nuts. It was just like, while Victor Wooten was taking a picture with Tal Wilkenfeld, and, it's just nuts. And so
it's a podcaster's fever dream.
Yes,
here.
Exactly. And the cool thing is they go wander around, like I remember at one point of the show, because I go out and kind of announce the people coming out, I looked out and it was like Rick Beato with Maynard of Tool, with Les Claypool, all this whole group standing with just the crowd. And I was like, that would never happen. They're usually so secure, but it's such a secure and safe environment where everyone's just there celebrating bass players. Hey, we rarely get celebrated, us bass players. So this is kind of a night for all the girls and boys out there who play the 4-string, 5-string, 6-string, and live in the low end world.
Awesome. Well, Jon, I want to thank you for being a guest on Music Rewind. I really do appreciate it. It was a pleasure to sit and talk with you about Radiohead's Kid A and all things bass. This was a pleasure.
Steve, it was such a pleasure, man. It was such a good time. I love the concept of this and the depth of it. Usually it's kind of like you get on, plug your thing and give a few cool things, pull quotes and see ya. And this is a amazing concept you do. Music Rewind is a beautiful thing I fully support. So thank you so much for having me on.
Tell your friends.
I will tell, trust me. Well, I'll make them like and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Music Rewind. As always, we appreciate a rating and review wherever you listen, and go to musicrewindpodcast.com for information on the show, more extras, and future episodes. So, as I always say, listen to the full album. Until next time.
A podcast from the Sidereal Media Group. Back to you, anchors.